Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Big test tonight for the Lakers in that it's a game that they can and should win. Those have been a little problematic this year. We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always free. It's never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 23,000 subscribers to the channel, all of whom are wondering, Andy, if the Lakers can do what they're supposed to do, which is beat a struggling team. We will get into that in just a moment. Before that, I do want to let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. I'm going to read to you, Andy Kamenetsky, the starting lineup for the Philadelphia 76ers in their loss earlier this week to the Phoenix Suns. The Sixers are now 38-31. They are a 500 team away from whatever building they play in Philadelphia, and have suffered greatly since the Joel Embiid got hurt. Here's who they started. Nick Batum, who is 57 years old, Mo Bamba, Kyle Lowry, Tyrese Maxey, and Kelly Oubre. Off the bench, they had KJ Martin, Paul Reed, Cameron Payne, Buddy Hield, and two people I have not heard of. This is not just a game that the Lakers can win. It's a game that they should win. And the shouldies this year, Andy, have been, I think, dicier propositions than a lot of times than when they go out and play the elite teams.
At this point, I would not even call this a can win or should win game. This is a you have to win it. Like, if you're going to make any point of these remaining games, other than the idea that, I guess, unless you're that confident that you won't fall out of the 10 seed, but as we will discuss later in the show, the Lakers really should not feel that level of confidence. Like, it is not a given that they are automatically going to maintain at minimum 10 the way it seemed just like a couple weeks ago. So, this is a must-win game in the sense of if you are trying to climb up possibly to the 8, maybe the 7, if you want to give yourself, or if nothing else, guarantee yourself hosting the first of these single elimination play-in games, you really must win from a practical standpoint. I'm not saying it won't happen if they lose tonight against the Sixers, but it makes moving forward with that goal that much more difficult. For simplicity's sake, this is a must-win game.
Yeah. And, it's really interesting too, because you look at the all the combinations and permutations, every day. And Trevor Lane does this, our friend from Lakers Nation has a tweet daily where he talks about like what you want as a Lakers fan. Here's what we're rooting for tonight. And he starts it pretty early in the season, but it gets really important at this time of year. And you look at what happened on Thursday, and, Phoenix, short of something really crazy happening while we record this show, and we'll let you know, Phoenix looks like they're going to win, and Dallas won, and, but the Kings lost. And importantly, Houston won. It's not just the teams that are in front of them, Andy, and like this battle between the Lakers and Warriors, who are tied in the loss column, each at 32, or the Lakers trying to catch the Suns, one of the rare teams in the West where they have the tiebreaker. They are still 3 games behind Phoenix in the loss column. And so, you can't fall further behind than that with just this few games left. But you also have to pay attention to the Rockets. You can't get so complacent that you're, just dealing with the Warriors and all that kind of stuff in the 9-10, or maybe we move up to the 8 or whatever it might be, that you forget that the Rockets are playing pretty well these days. They've won 9 of 10, 7 in a row, and are only 3 games behind the Lakers, again, in the loss column and in the standings. And I believe currently would own the tiebreaker based on conference record. Like, you have to keep an eye on the catastrophic result here too, and not, there's a lot going on here. The Lakers have not locked themselves into a spot in the top 10 yet. And so it's about moving up, but it's also about avoiding catastrophe.
And it's also, I think, too, about trying to, as much as you can, capitalize on opportunity.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned before, the Lakers got through what was a very, very difficult recent stretch in their schedule. And it wasn't always pretty or impressive or reassuring, depending on the context of each individual win. But the bottom line is they did more winning than losing. They did far less damage than, more hurt to themselves. And all of a sudden now they're in a place where their schedule starts lightening up. Per Tankathon, they have the 20th hardest, the 20th hardest or 10th easiest remaining schedule based on strength of schedule. And you look around the teams that are either they're chasing or chasing them. Phoenix has the second overall schedule. And by the way, let me read you off Phoenix's home stretch.
Their final 10 games, that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's insane.
At Denver, at OKC, at Pelicans, hosting the Cavaliers, hosting the Timberwolves, hosting the Pelicans, hosting the Clippers, at Clippers, second end of a back-to-back, at Sacramento, at Minnesota. Like
the worst team in that group are the Kings.
I am rooting against Phoenix hard, and I feel sorry for them. Like, that is brutal, and that's why they have the second overall. Sacramento, who, again, lost tonight, the Wizards of all teams, on the road doing the Kings a favor. I mean, doing the Lakers a favor. Sacramento has the fourth overall hardest schedule. Houston, 13th. Golden State, 19th. Lakers, 20th. Dallas, 25th. And then, they've got, what makes it complicated is some of these teams, they're going to be playing each other. Mm-hmm. And depending on, I guess, the context of each individual day, which team wins, which team loses, helps or hurt the Lakers more, I think literally may change day by day.
Right.
But the Lakers, other than one more game against the Warriors, do not play any of these teams anymore. But some of them,
right.
Phoenix
Nobody they can catch. I mean, they do have another game, like they play the Pellies. They finished the season, I think. With
right, but I'm not counting the Pelicans.
They're not catching New Orleans. Exactly.
Right, exactly. I'm talking about teams realistically chasing them or that they're chasing. Dallas has 2 games against Sacramento, 2 against Golden State, 2 against Houston. Golden State has a few against teams that they're either chasing or being chased by. Houston, Sacramento as well. So, I mean, this stuff will get complicated, and there are going to be plenty of times where you're like, I don't even know who the hell to root for here. Like, I can't figure out which is
the Phoenix piece of that. I'm glad you read the part of the schedule, because like that is an important factor. And one of the reasons, the Suns legitimately, you read that those final 10 games are insane with the quality of the competition that they're facing. And while the Suns, are kind of quietly getting their act together, I think they're going to be 12 games over 500 after Thursday's games. That's pretty brutal. And, you can lose 3 or 4 of those games. And again, the Lakers, the only team currently that they can cleanly just tie in the standings and win a tiebreaker with is Phoenix. So if you can pile up wins,
I think Golden State, they would have the tiebreaker.
Right. I'm sorry that they're chasing currently. Okay. And it's not totally determined with Golden State because they still have that one more game.
If they won that game,
if they won that game, right, they control that ability, but they don't currently have that clinched. Phoenix, right. They do. And so those last 10 games become really important. And the last thing I'll say about this that is, I think, key here too, is it's easy to get caught up in the seeding. And, everydayers have heard us talk a little bit about this. Like, there is obviously an importance to, it is better to be 8 than 9. It is better to be 9 than 10. And all these things matter, but they are past a point to some degree where they can control that stuff. They blew that opportunity.
I was going to say they crapped away that luxury long time ago.
You can't undo it. So what can you do? You can put yourself in a position where you can say, you know what? Yeah, I wish we were the 6th seed. I wish we were the 7th seed. We think we're capable of that. We botched it. But what we are is a team that won 11 of our final 15 games, or 12 of our final 15 games, or 10 of 13, or 9 in a row to end the year, whatever it is, where you can move the goalposts, no question, but move them to a place that allows you to legitimately say, okay, we got something going here. So let's talk a little bit about the lineup and Jalen Hood-Schifino and everything he symbolizes, because he got some bad news earlier on Thursday. So all that coming up next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. The easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It is demon time on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Demons and goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at PrizePicks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins will get you different payouts. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value, plus an excuse to eat tacos as part of the theme. PrizePicks offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Reminder, the Lakers play the Sixers tonight at 7:30 local time. Philly struggled lately without Joel Embiid, DeAnthony Melton, and Tobias Harris's status for the game is, as of this recording, to be determined. Catch every Lakers game on the hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers. All right.
Cool. Yeah, I was just going to say I tried to record that clip. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Andy. The Lakers. Did the Lakers announce it or was it just reported?
The Lakers announced it.
Yeah. So he has what is the technical term for? He's got a bad back.
He is going to be undergoing. It's called a lumbar discectomy. According to Johns Hopkins Medicine, it's a type of surgery to fix a bulging disc in the lower back, typically small cuts, small incisions, as opposed to an open lumbar discectomy, which I'm just assuming is bigger cuts.
Right. This is a micro disectomy. He's having a
yes.
lumbar micro disectomy, I believe.
Yeah. I don't know. It's probably the size of the scalpel or whatever.
It's like a regular disectomy, Andy. Only smaller.
Yeah, it's
micro.
My understanding is also less expensive because smaller cuts. And the orthopedic surgeon
Lakers cheaping out again. Most teams would splurge for the big disectomy, but they're not doing it. They're only getting micro.
I'll tell you right now, Ballmer, like his players get the big one just for fun, just because he can afford it. Like
you get a disectomy, and you get a disectomy, and you get one. Macro, the biggest toilets, the biggest disectomy that you can afford, that you want, you get it, Kawhi Leonard.
That's why he signed the extension. It removes pressure on the nerve root or spinal cord. Symptoms can include a lasting weakness, pain, or tingling in the back area or in one of your legs. Don't know yet. We don't know yet how long Hood-Schifino has been dealing
or even
with
what
this.
Brought this on, how long he's been dealing with it. We don't know a lot. The fact that we haven't really known how long he's been dealing with this, and it reflects part of the issue where Hood-Schifino has actually been kind of in the conversation across social media because he hasn't played. He's been so irrelevant to the season that nobody's noticed necessarily on the big club whether or not he's been available. And he's played a little more than 20 games for the Lakers in spot duty, only in emergencies, and hasn't particularly looked good. Meanwhile, Jaime Jaquez and Pajemski in Golden State, Cam Whitmore in Houston, there have been guys who are drafted around him that have been much more involved in what their teams have been doing. All of them, it should be noted, have been given the opportunity because of injuries. None of them sort of just showed up and started playing. But it's not like injuries haven't opened up opportunities for the Lakers roster either, because he has spent a lot of the year hurt. He didn't get to play in training camp. He missed the first 25 or whatever games of the season, and all that kind of stuff. And then, didn't look great. And so he wasn't ready anyway. But none of this has gone. My point is, none of this has gone well. Whereas these other guys have shown a lot of potential. And that has put the decision to draft him in the first place right in the crosshairs of evaluating what has been evaluating the judgment of management. And I think it's a really interesting question, because would Cam Whitmore have been contributing on this team? Maybe not. The thing he does best is scoring, which is the one thing the Lakers don't necessarily need. He's not a great ball mover. He's a spotty rebounder. He defends like a rookie. Podziemski would be playing. I don't think there's any question he would have had an opportunity to play. And Jaquez, who's had some great games, is also 4 years older than Hood-Schifino. It's just, it's a process question. Not to me, at least, not a question of, could Jalen Hood-Schifino turn out to be a good player?
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, it is certainly a possibility that Jalen Hood-Schifino will end up just a flat out mistake as a player,
question.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is far too early to reach that conclusion, as I've seen many Laker fans and even people covering the Lakers already arrive at that conclusion. I think it's just way premature. The process question, though, like the idea of Jaquez, no matter what you think his ceiling was, I think it was very agreed upon. He was ready to play in the NBA.
Right. 4-year guy at UCLA. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. No matter what you thought, like how great of a player you could be, like even if you thought how he arrived in the NBA is more or less who he's going to be as a player, he's got a little bit of Larry Nance Jr. in him. And we covered Larry during his rookie year, or Josh Hart. I think both guys have gotten better, particularly Hart, over the course of their careers. But both of those guys, when they arrived in the NBA, would have been able to contribute on a good team. They happen to be playing on bad one with the Lakers, but they both could have helped a good team because they were just smart, seasoned, 22, 23-year-olds as rookies who understood the game well. You mentioned Whitmore being a scorer and maybe the team wouldn't have needed him. They might have at the beginning of the year, though. Sure. Whitmore could have actually carved out a spot for himself early in the season.
Maybe. I mean, he couldn't get on the floor with Houston at the beginning of the season either. So
the point being, though, the Lakers were so offensively starved, though, at the beginning of the year. Maybe an opportunity opens up, maybe not. I feel bad for Hood-Schifino in the sense that he is going to have to average 5x5 next season, in order to get fans off his ass, because the overwhelming consensus is the Lakers screwed this up. And, he arrived as, I think, if anybody was being realistic, a project. And you can argue about whether or not a team in the most extreme win now mode should have even given themselves the luxury of a project. But, at the time they thought we're going to have a solid 3-guard rotation of D'Lo, Reeves, and Gabe Vincent, combined with all of the ball handling that LeBron does, combined with how much we're going to focus on Anthony Davis, and maybe some hopes for Max Christie as the 4th guard. We don't anticipate this kid getting on the court anyway, but in the meantime, we could use more youth. So I understand why somebody like Hood-Schifino, assuming they scouted him correctly in terms of his potential, I can see why they liked him. Whether, again,
you and I did not criticize the pick when they made it.
No.
Again, on a process, well, we criticized it a little bit on a process basis. Just, we did ask the question, should they have drafted somebody more able to play? And we weren't college basketball guys, so I couldn't identify that person. But we weren't
super critical of it, though.
No, because of all the reasons you're talking about. But there was the question of, especially once Vincent got hurt. Like, would it have made more sense to draft someone? We brought that up, but
Sure.
but the logic does make some sense. And we'll get to this lineup question that was asked on the YouTube channel in a second. But I do think the point you make about conflating two things. Jalen Hood-Schifino has not helped them this year. Other players would have, is a different question than could Jalen Hood-Schifino still be good? Hood-Schifino could end up being a better player than Jaquez. He could end up being a better player than Pajemski. He could be a better player than Cam Whitmore. I don't know if he will or he won't, but that option is still there. And part of the problem is, like you said, he's been hurt all year and, hasn't been able, he's supposed to be able to play most of the season with South Bay, and he hasn't been able to. That's really the biggest loss, is that he has not gotten the reps on the G League team that I think everyone, including him, expected him to be able to get. But when he has played, it's worth noting he's been quite good. 35 minutes a game over 15 games. He's averaging 47% from the field, 43% from 3-point range, 22 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, a steal, and half a block. I mean, that's pretty good in 35 minutes a game. You would see that as your number one pick as a developmental player at 20 years old and be like, okay, if you do that all season in the G League, I wouldn't give up on that guy. And so it is important to not conflate the two issues. And I think you were smart to lay it out that way. Got a really interesting question about the lineup with Cam Reddish returning and whether or not Darvin Ham might want to consider a tweak. And we'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, or all three, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what it is you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts that you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
So Cam Reddish is expected to play. He's been practicing and been on the floor this week. And we talked a lot on Thursday's show, Andy, about just whether you are still Cam Reddish skeptical, like some of us who host this show, or not. He does provide help on the wing. Just, if nothing else, he is a large body with some athleticism who can do different things defensively than the only other large body you have. There isn't even that big, which is Taurean Prince. He's much bigger than Max Christie. So, the optionality there for Darvin is important. The Lakers, in related news, we talked about Spencer Dinwiddie and his struggles and how that is impacting the bench. The bench has been wildly outscored, basically by everyone for a while now. I'm not even going to pull up the numbers. They've just we're talking about games where the Lakers bench produces like 14 points, things like that. Trey Lyles 11, Lakers bench 14, things like that. Got this comment from Siskel 2831 on the YouTube channel. Thoughts on this? What about starting Reddish over Reeves? Two problems this solves. It solves our scoring issue off the bench, with Reeves coming in once again as our Manu sixth man, and Cam provides a boost defensively, having length and size and athleticism, and as a point of attack defender, Cam can also provide a couple threes from the corner from time to time, so not a huge downgrade from Reeves. That part I would disagree with as an offensive.
That part is just straight up inaccurate.
Right. I mean, I appreciate Siskel's optimism here. That last part, I'm just going to have to say, no, he is a massive downgrade offensively from Cam Reddish. But the other points that he's making are No, I can wrap my head around them. They're worth discussing. What's your reaction just to the sort of the concept of trying to boost your bench by putting Reeves back there and putting Reddish into the starting lineup?
First things first, I want to see a game or two that Cam Reddish can actually stay on the floor, stay active, and not end up going.
Well, let's assume he can. But I'm saying
it's very important, I think, to point this out because this is not the first go around with the Reddish rodeo where he keeps dealing with some injury, playing a few games, sits, plays a few games, sits, long absence, whatever. But assuming he's actually able to stay on the court, I think it could make some sense to start him, but not for Reeves. I would move Rui to the bench for a few reasons. First of all, Rui's been the most recent bench player, so it's the most familiar look for everybody else. He's also the one with, I think, the most narrowly tailored role, like the most one-dimensional role. He's just really out there to be a very effective scorer. So swapping him out for another, albeit very different, narrowly tailored role player, albeit not as good in his role as Rui's is in his, but whatever. I think it's the cleanest. The bench could use Rui's scoring badly, and I feel like adding yet another non-scorer to the bench in Reddish, if you just decide to play him off the bench, takes what feels like a weakness and makes it potentially weaker.
Yeah.
I also feel like if you bring in a non-scoring option like Reddish, we've seen he's going to be sagged off and ignored defensively. I actually think it's more important to have a playmaker on the court like Reeves, who can manipulate it, tilt the defense better than Rui, who even his own teammates, who have been praising his ability to escape double teams by dribbling around them or shooting over them, make a point of he's not passing out of them. No. I mean, Rui will occasionally have, some sequences where he throws a pretty good kick out or whatever, or, he'll make like a good extra pass. He'll make a good swing, but Rui's not a playmaker. That is not what
he's averaging does. 1 assist per game.
Right. Always a high level one, but just
right, which is only slightly less than the 1.3 he's averaged on his career. Point forward, he is not.
I also think it makes sense to potentially move Reddish into the starting lineup just because they need more defensive integrity. They need an actual point of attack defender, unless you want to just keep putting Austin Reeves on the best guard you face, or LeBron and Rui on the best big wing that you face, like as an automatic. I just feel like you need more optionality there. And then it just comes down to Darvin to slot the minutes appropriately,
Yeah, it's funny to me because, again, people know how I feel about Reddish, and it's not Cam Reddish the human, it's Cam Reddish the player. I just don't. I think the promise of Reddish is generally better than the results. But even sort of if you're thinking peak Reddish, I'm a little torn on this because I do agree with you. They could use a little more D. I think that's been pretty well established over the last 25 games. And even if you could say you accept the premise that Reddish would give that to you, what I think you'd be better off doing is just sort of staggering the minutes a little bit more to try to tweak those combinations. The reason I wouldn't, I agree. I think everything you're saying about Reeves is correct. The backcourt is playing quite well. You've got that good rhythm, and Reeves is, performed pretty well. You finally got Rui going, like more nights than not now, while again, not a complete player, all that stuff. He feels comfortable. He's doing the thing that you need him to do, which is provide that boost in scoring. So the burden on particularly LeBron isn't quite as high every single night. He's finally feeling confident. He's finally feeling like his role is established and consistent. I just don't want to mess with that. But it gets the fact that you're even asking this question for Cam Reddish gets to the problem that the Lakers have defensively. This is not, it's not even a question of like elite offense, average defense. if that were the case, the Lakers would be like 6th in the conference right now, or 5th in the conference.
Yeah, easily.
It's elite offense, bad defense. And even if you accept the premise that Reddish will help them significantly in that way, maybe on a Vanderbiltian sort of level, because Vanderbilt's both a better defender and also slots people into strengths better than Reddish's presence does. I just don't want to mess with kind of the one thing that we know is working, which is the offense. And I just feel, it's an interesting premise. And I have to say, even as a Reddish skeptic, I did sit there and go, is this a good idea? Like I gave it real thought, and tried to make sure that my own personal bias, so to speak, wasn't just dismissing it offhand.
Rui has talked, and granted the context was more specifically about Vanderbilt, but Rui has talked about the lineup will probably switch with Vanderbilt coming back. And I got the impression that Rui expected him to be the guy moving to the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed genuinely cool with it. Maybe, and I want to emphasize, this is a maybe, because I truly have no idea. Maybe he would feel different about it with Reddish versus Vanderbilt, but it seems like he understands why Vanderbilt would theoretically, were he available, and who knows if he ever will be, why Vanderbilt would move into the starting lineup. And if he understands why Vanderbilt would, it stands to reason he could understand why Cam would, because Cam is basically Vanderbilt light for this team.
Too light. That's the thing. It's what I'm saying, but like I am not worried about Rui's team attitude about this. I'm not. My point isn't that Rui wouldn't go along and get along. I am saying that the difference between Vanderbilt and Reddish, to the point that you're making, because I agree with you, if Vanderbilt's able to play and can play like himself after 2 or 3 games of getting back into the speed of things, he will start, and he should. The difference between Reddish and Vanderbilt is large enough, in my mind, that it's not worth making that transition. I don't think you get enough of that defensive boost from Cam Reddish, who is, at least based on what Vanderbilt was doing before he got hurt, Reddish is a worse offensive player than Vanderbilt.
I would agree.
So, in terms of his ability to, Vanderbilt's ability to find us, make his lack of gravity.
Vanderbilt helps the offense just by getting them second opportunities.
Right. Better rebounder, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Again,
conceptually, I don't think if Darvin said, I got to move you to the bench, Rui, because we need Cam's defense, I don't think Rui's going to throw a fit. I know that's not what you're. I'm just saying, and I agree with you that he's probably expecting a change. I just don't think Reddish is good enough to be the impetus of that change.
Sure. The only reason I raised the question is just the idea of comfort zone. Yeah. I think he would be able to find a comfort zone, if nothing else, potentially easier, because you understand why this is happening as opposed to feeling demoted. That's all.
Lakers tonight against the Sixers, 7:30 tip. You can catch every moment of the Lakers hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Search Lakers. Again, a must win for the Lakers. Our plan is to break down for a few minutes afterwards. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, watch the magic happen, and hang out more importantly with over 23,000 subscribers. Leave comments, talk to us, talk to them. I know I was leaving replies to some of those comments on the page today. I know you do that, Andy, most days as well. So we really want this to be an interactive experience for everyone. We appreciate all the subscribers and all the comments and all the views. So we will see everyone after the game, and hope everybody has a great Friday and a great weekend.